accused of doing, Mike?
Yeah, Andy, and the police chief is accused of stealing and selling drugs from a program designed to take those drugs off the street. The investigation centers around Red Med Box. You'll find the collection boxes all across police departments across the country. And of course, in West Michigan, the drugs are left inside and meant to be destroyed. Investigators dropped off a bottle of painkillers at the Hartford Police Department. Each pill marked, and when detectives came back, they say at least 2 dozen pills are missing. One bottle completely empty. Investigators say they started looking into Hartford Chief Tressa Beltran after getting an anonymous tip she was possibly involved with using and dealing painkillers at the police station. According to the information used to grant a search warrant, Van Buren County drug detectives dropped off hydrocodone prescription pain pills at Hartford PD's Red Med Box. Days later, investigators came to ask Beltran where the missing drugs were. According to court documents, she tells detectives the pills were in the evidence room, then tells them to wait 15 minutes. Investigators say they watched as Beltran drove away before returning with the drugs in an unsecured bag. Investigators say the chief is the only member at Hartford PD with the key to get into the collection box.
My client right now is anxiously awaiting the results of the investigation and maintains her innocence.
Beltran has been on paid administrative leave since the day of the search over 2 months ago. She's been with the Hartford Police Department for 33 years, named chief in 2016. Her attorney is Don Sopanos.
I think the Attorney General wants the case, if there is one, as neat and tight as possible to make their job easier, and I think that she's going to take her time in making this decision.
The Van Buren County Sheriff's Office says it's responsible for destroying the drugs collected in the boxes at local police departments, including in Hartford. Investigative documents show Beltran was telling a detective she sometimes empties the container of collected drugs in the office where everyone has access to them. Quote, "If I were a suspicious girl, I would think Lucas was setting me up," Beltran says, referring to one of the investigators. And the Hartford City Manager says Beltran will remain on leave until the investigation is complete. The Michigan Attorney General's office is now investigating. Live in the studio, Mike Krafcik, News Channel 3.
Church did little to protect her, even as the behavior continued.
A cycle of depression and anxiety.
It's grooming, which I didn't even realize until years later.
It's taken more than a decade, but Linda Shank is starting to break that cycle.
I feel like being able to finally get my story out has brought so much healing and so much freedom.
Now 26 years old, she's coming forward. She says a former Riverside Church volunteer started sexually abusing her in 2011. She was 15 at the time. He was 44. Both were youth ministry volunteers.
I didn't have a father in my life, so that kind of just made it worse. Like he would say he was going to be like my spiritual father.
In court records, Shank alleges it lasted for about a year.
There was a time where he told me that he was in love with me.
She says the volunteer group often met at the man's home.
Started off slow with him trying to hold my hand and things like that, and then it just progressively got worse and worse.
Court documents show Shank first told her youth pastor in March 2012 after she says the man groped her one night in her bedroom.
I went upstairs to get something and he followed me up. And that was when he sort of grabbed me into a hug, but he was like pushing his pelvis against me, started to kiss my neck and stuff, and was groping me.
Following the incident, the church removed the volunteer from the youth ministry. Shank's former youth pastor wrote in a recent open letter that he reported the abuse to Riverside senior pastor Paul Bucco.
How many of you know that everything that you hear and read is not necessarily the truth? You understand that, right?
Bucco has made reference to Shank's allegations in this recent sermon after she went public.
Hey, if you have any questions, about anything that's going on, please come and talk to me.
Bucco issued a series of statements on behalf of Riverside, denying any cover-up and saying that the church took necessary actions it thought were appropriate at the time, including getting both involved in counseling. Shank says the church promised the volunteer would never contact her again.
No, he didn't. He never stayed away.
According to court and police reports filed in 2012, Shank alleges the man continued to send the 16-year-old sexually related texts, even after she changed her number. According to a Three Rivers police report, the volunteer tells a detective he's an adult in the situation and should have known better, adding the situation wasn't going to go further.
Just wanted a chance to ask you a few questions.
Bucco declined multiple requests to talk to us, including when we showed up at his church.
Do you believe Linda and what happened to her?
Well, like I said, no comment at this point.
He doesn't want them to come talk to them. He doesn't want anybody to.
Shank says she was left alone until she got a call out of the blue when she was home on Christmas break in 2015. She was 19 at the time.
He had called me and he was like, we should try to meet up somewhere. And he was like, I can assure you I'm not going to try to do anything to you. I just want to talk to you. So I agreed to meet with him.
According to a St. Joseph County Sheriff's Office report, Shank says the man sexually assaulted her in his car.
He attacked me. He was on top of me. And from that point until it was over, I just sort of laid there frozen.
The volunteer told detectives it was consensual. He was never charged. The now former St. Joseph County prosecutor John McDonough wrote Shank was put in a horrible situation in his review of the case. McDonough noted there wasn't enough evidence to prove the contact was not consensual. Following the incident, a judge granted Shank a second PPO against the man.
I feel like if the church had done more, actually tried to report it, actually made him leave or something, some kind of punishment, he wouldn't have continued to try to pursue me for 5 years later.
The man continued to volunteer at Riverside following both abuse allegations. According to this Riverside Facebook post in 2017, the church praises him for his volunteer work in the church's tech booth.
That just blew my mind. That's just crazy.
The current St. Joseph County prosecutor, David Marvin, tells me he has no plans to pursue criminal charges, saying he agreed with his predecessor's 2016 decision not to charge based on a lack of evidence. We reached out to the volunteer. He declined to talk to us through his attorney. For the News Channel 3i team, I'm Mike Krafcik. Yeah, Andy, and state officials say the fine is believed to be the largest connected to a commercial diving incident in the state's history. It is a rare occurrence. There's been 4 similar deaths nationwide since 2020, according to federal safety records. The Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or MIOSHA, says that penalty is designed to have a deterrent effect against the company, Great Lakes Engineering Group. State investigators say Brian Trahey was scuba diving without being tethered by a line. State occupational safety and health officials say basic diving safety guidelines were willfully ignored when Trahey drowned during the July 2021 underwater inspection at the Culkins Dam Bridge.
This was something that was completely avoidable.
Investigative documents show MIOSHA hit Great Lakes Engineering firm with a $119,000 fine. Among the 9 violations, allegations the engineering firm didn't properly assess dive conditions and failed to maintain communication with Trahey while he inspected the hydroelectric dam. Philip Newsom leads the Association of Diving Contractors International.
When you perform work of this nature, it should be done with surface applied equipment. The divers should be helmeted, they should be tethered.
The MIOSHA report obtained by News Channel 3 shows divers were swept away from currents in other instances when they weren't tethered together.
Based upon the report, this has been a systemic problem, which makes it a lot easier to understand why the proposed penalty is the amount that it is.
Trahey is the late husband of Great Lakes Engineering Group President Amy Trahey. A company executive declined to comment on the violations, but noted the company is primarily known for inspecting bridges.
The welfare and the safety of the dive team falls upon the supervisor and the diving contractor. They're the trained professionals.
Now, investigators say a team of 5 employees for the company were on site for that inspection last July. They noted the standby diver on that day was not prepared or equipped to act as a diver. After Trahey's death, the company told us at the time he was an experienced diver, completing over 1,000 dives on Michigan bridges and dams. Live in the studio, Mike Krafcik, News Channel 3.
You all right. You don't have to be scared. You all
Deanne
right.
Winfield says asthma
Yes, sir.
has been killing her family.
The doctors don't know really what it is.
She says her daughter was 17 when she died from an asthma attack in 2009. Winfield's son, DeAndre Jones,
His heart done stopped. He done had to be on life support for like 69 days.
is now in a breathing machine, confined to his couch. 6 weeks ago, Winfield says doctors told the 30-year-old he has 30 days to live.
No, he had a really bad, horrible asthma attack, and it just shut everything down on him.
Family says theaters outside their home make it hard.
Some days, rotten eggs. Sometimes it smells like old, spoiled meats.
State toxicologists say that rotten smell found high in the sky is hydrogen sulfide. The odorous chemical is produced from natural sources, and health officials say it's been found in the graphic packaging cardboard recycling plant and the city of Kalamazoo's wastewater plant, located right next to each other and just blocks away from the Winfield family home here on the north side.
The levels that we see here are in that sort of, you can smell it, detect it, but it's very hard to link it directly to an individual's experience.
Last month, investigators found the smell is not harmful in the short term. State health officials expect to reveal the effects of long-term exposure sometime early January. In 2020, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the EPA started investigating. A team of toxicologists are studying data from these hydrogen sulfide sensors around the community. Officials say prolonged exposure to the chemical won't cause asthma, but can make the condition worse.
Those who are most sensitive that we're concerned about are people who have any pre-existing respiratory challenges. So,
toxicologist Corey Grosh says they'll be using research from Dr. David Ansel, which shows Kalamazoo's Northside neighborhood has air quality below the U.S. average. Ansel's study shows asthma hospitalization rates are 5 times higher than neighboring city zip codes. He highlighted those findings at a city commission meeting last December.
Many residents live too close to these facilities, and these are the same neighborhoods that have a decline in life expectancy.
State health officials say 2 years of air quality monitoring shows no clear indication on where the gases are coming from.
what the data seems to say right now is you have transient levels coming off of graphics packaging from time to time. You have hydrogen sulfide transient odors coming off of the wastewater treatment plant.
Grosh says health officials will continue their work until they can get a handle on the problem. The time is running out for DeAndre Jones.
One day at a time.
Each word,
One step at a time.
each breath is a struggle.
Sometimes I get so frustrated. I give up.
His family still left wondering how they got so sick.
They really don't care about us. They don't care if we live. They don't care if we die.
Health officials say examining data from these hydrogen sulfide sensors will be key to figure out if there are any long-term health impacts. These sensors were just installed for the first time in the community in January, despite 100 odor complaints, including 8 violations here at Graphic Packaging since 2010. A company spokesperson tells me they're taking significant steps to reduce the odors, and they're required to by the state. City commissioners recently approved a 1-year tax break for the company, which is set to undergo a $600 million expansion here at the plant, set to be complete next month. For the News Channel 3i team, I'm Mike Krafcik. These are some of the 14 lawsuits I found filed against the owner of Loft 310 in downtown Kalamazoo. All of the couples who took legal action say they put money down to book the venue, then their weddings got canceled. They say the venue's owner, Ryan Reedy, refused to give their money back. The Michigan Attorney General's office says it's investigating 1 complaint related to the venue. The AG's office says they received 73 other refund complaints tied to wedding venues across the state. They expected the wedding of a lifetime.
It was all ripped away. It was very just emotionally draining.
Down the drain. That's where Kristen and Bryant Powers say the $24,000 went that they put down to book the Loft 310 for their August 2020 wedding in Kalamazoo.
It's essentially
a down payment on a house.
The governor's then executive orders banned large gatherings to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Restrictions that have also left wedding venues across the country scrambling to recoup costs. According to their lawsuit, the Powers say they were told they wouldn't get a refund, but could reschedule for full credit on a non-peak day.
We paid for a prime summer day, and they basically came back and said, no, you cannot reschedule for a prime summer day. It has to be during the winter.
Couple says they were planning to reschedule for March 2021. They say communication started to break down as COVID restrictions remained in place.
Because they wouldn't answer our phone calls anymore, saying due to ongoing litigations, everything has to be done through email. And that's when we decided to get a lawyer.
Loft 310 owner Ryan Reedy declined to talk to us on camera, but has denied the allegations in the couple's lawsuit, which accuses him of breaching their wedding contract. In a statement, Reedy tells us all clients agreed to non-refundable contracts with non-reversible payments.
We've invested tens and thousands of dollars, and we have nothing to show for it. There was no ability to have the event. So the return of the money could have been as simple as that.
Attorney Philip Hamilton is representing the Powers and a second couple who settled out of court with Reedy.
This is certainly a pattern of conduct, and particularly for the number and the level of cases that involves.
In lawsuit after lawsuit, Reedy allegedly informed couples he wouldn't provide refunds or respond to their arbitration requests after they canceled weddings that couldn't be held during the pandemic. Some of those couples cite in court documents allegations Reedy threatened to sue them in return.
They've tried to dictate the rules all along. And when the rules don't favor them, they just try to unilaterally change them.
The Powers lawsuit also alleges Reedy stole their deposit to pay for his business operations unrelated to their wedding and reception. Reedy tells us 70% of administrative and facility costs happened more than a year before the event day. Reedy says despite losing 95% of his revenue over 16 months, his venue has offered to reschedule all events.
They came out and said, well, it went to what you paid for. I'm like, I didn't have any servers. I didn't have any food. We paid for a full bar. We didn't get a full bar.
Court records show that 6 of the lawsuits were dismissed, which means they were either thrown out, settled, or sent to arbitration. At least 2 other cases have been settled out of court.
Parties should go forward with the arbitration.
The court has ordered Reedy to pay a total of $150,000 in arbitration awards to 5 couples, according to Kalamazoo County Court records. The Powers are taking their case to trial, hoping to find peace of mind.
You have this person kind of pushing at you from every angle, just taking all the emotional, just putting a whole bunch of drag on you, and you just can't even look forward to a day that you really were looking forward to.
The couple did end up getting married in 2021, but at a different, smaller venue and with more debt than expected.
A wedding is something you look forward to, and you're so excited to plan the next part of your life together. Who wants to start off a marriage with a lawyer?
Reedy says Loft 310 has been closed since March 2020 in order to focus on rebooking events and the ongoing litigation. The venue is located within his entertainment district in downtown Kalamazoo. His plans to reopen the former Monaco Bay Piano Bar as a sports bar in 2019 never materialized, and his nightclub Wild Bull has remained closed since 2020. For the News Channel 3i team, I'm Mike Krafcik.